All right, welcome to episode 54 of the Talking Friars podcast. I'm your host, Ben Fadden, here, coming to you after the Padres were able to scratch out a series win against the Houston Astros. Didn't look great after Paddock gave up those back-to-back home runs to Carlos Correa and Yuli Gurriel. It was actually flip-flopped, but those two guys hit the back-to-back home runs. Four pitches in that seventh inning, and the game was tied. Not There wasn't a whole lot of momentum from the Padres side of things after that. The crowd was pretty quiet after that happened, obviously. But Jake Cronenworth comes through, hits it into the Crone zone in right field. It was a while since he had. I think it was last time was like in Arizona, last time he hit a homer. So definitely needed, and that was great to see the crowd be electric like that, and the team to have fun. The team hadn't had fun. It seemed like in weeks. Getting swept by the Dodgers, obviously losing 5 of their last 20, which they did, I think, going into this series. So it was great to see the team having fun, the fans, Fernando bat flipping and doing his skip around third on Saturday after the homer. So let's wrap all that up. There's some mailbag questions. There were some interesting things that Ken Rosenthal said about Ty France, which I wanted to get into as well. Excuse me. So we'll get into all of that. Mckenzie Gore also. We'll start with that actually. Mckenzie Gore, he was assigned to High A Fort Wayne. I believe you're starting either last night or today. So I think that that's obviously a good sign that Gore is pitching in minor league baseball, not against rookie league guys or just throwing bullpens or whatnot, or live BP in Arizona. It's good to see him actually facing minor league competition now. And if he keeps doing well, and with the refined leg kick that he has, it seems like just simpler mechanics. If he can keep doing well, keep pitching well, I think that the Padres will keep moving him up the system, a couple starts at a time. And maybe you see a Ryan Weathers situation where he makes his big league debut in the playoffs. Now, I think that's still a long shot, but I think that if Gore shows that he's capable of pitching, he's the Mckenzie Gore that we were expecting him to be. And let's say someone in the bullpen, there's a couple guys in the bullpen that don't have great appearances going into late September or going into the playoffs. Fingers crossed if the Padres make it. I think that AJ Preller's not going to be shy. He's going to go with the option that helps the team win the most. And Ryan Weathers was that last year. So we'll maybe see if Gore's that this year. Again, I think it's still a long shot that he pitches in the big leagues this year, just because of how long it took him and just how it seems like how short of time he's had with the new mechanics, that I think it's a long shot, but it's still good news that he was assigned to high A, which is a higher level, obviously, than rookie ball, which what he was facing in and where all that buzz kind of started when he was facing, 18-year-olds, which is not major league ready competition, obviously. So that's something to keep an eye on. Let's get to this series, Houston and San Diego, a 3-game series. I thought this was one of the best series of the weekend. Obviously, Giants Dodgers is the two best teams in the league, with Sunday Night Baseball, I think, going on right now. But this was right up there too. Jake Arrieta started off this game. I wrote an article on gaslampball.com, which you can check out. I did not think that it was best for Arrieta to start this game, especially over Joe Musgrove. Musgrove already had like a week rest, and he said days before this happened that he doesn't want the rest. He knows where the Padres are position-wise in the playoffs, in the wild card race, and he knows that he's their most consistent starting pitcher this year. And so he thinks that he pitching, him being on the mound, gives the Padres the best chance to win games, and that's all that matters. And so for Jace Tingler to say, no, we'll go with Jake Arrieta, him and his, over 7 ERA going into this start, it just didn't make sense. And that's not even featuring, I haven't even talked about how the schedule wise, how that affected, scheduling with Arrieta going. Snell couldn't pitch today on Sunday, which obviously in hindsight, that wasn't that bad because Paddock pitched great, which we'll get to, but it kept Snell from pitching against a better team. He now pitches against the Angels instead of the Astros. And it also obviously, that means that Musgrove has less starts, I think, against, good competition. So you can check that article out again. The whole schedule's up there, what they could have done if Musgrove started Friday, and that it allowed that would have allowed Musgrove to pitch more good against better opponents, and it would have allowed the Padres to pitch Arrieta less than they, or at least start him less, maybe a bullpen option, but at least start him less than they did. Now, he ended up pitching good, I think. He started off with 3 scoreless innings before giving up the 3-run homer to Correa in the 4th. Giving up 3 runs, that's fine. Going into this, the only reason Jake Arrieta was signed here, obviously, was because of the Darvish and Paddock injuries, and they really needed help at the back of that rotation. They literally just didn't have anyone. Minor leagues, Mckenzie Gore is facing 18-year-olds, like I said in Rookie Bowl. Reese Kinnear, yeah. Are you confident in him? No. You don't want to just keep throwing bullpen games out there. And so they literally just went and said, hey, Jake, we'll give you a couple starts here, and maybe you find something, or maybe, a playoff atmosphere, which is totally opposite from what he was pitching in with the Cubs this year. Maybe that can help you. So the only reason that he's here is because of the injuries. And what are you expecting out of him? He got shelled pretty much in Colorado before he hurt his hamstring while giving up a home run. So giving up 3 runs, that's fine. It's one of those things where he's just here to fill innings. Giving up runs like that, as long as you just keep the team in the ball game, that's all you want from him. And he did that. I think he could have been out of the inning in that 4th inning before the Correa home run. But Hosmer just wasn't at the bag on Brantley's grounder to Ha-Seong Kim. A lot of people are saying that Hosmer, or at least the Hosmer haters obviously are saying that Hosmer wasn't hustling and it's in the middle of a pennant race and he wasn't hustling to the bag. But it's kind of weird. I can see where they, people think that, he wasn't hustling or whatnot, but I think he may have been expecting Arrieta to be covering there. And so I think it's bad on both parts. I know Arrieta with the hamstring, blah, blah, blah. But I think that Arrieta still should have been over there in the area, and I didn't see him in the area there by first base. Anything to the right like that, you should be running over there. I didn't see that. But then also for Hosmer, once it comes past him, he has to bust his butt over there and look, find the bag and then look. And he didn't do that. I think he could have been faster to the bag. So I place blame both ways there. I maybe place blame a little bit on the coaching staff for not warning Arrieta, hey, we play in the shift and there's ground balls that are hit there all the time, or running through that play with Hosmer, because most of the time, correct me if I'm wrong, on social media and stuff, I don't think Hosmer has been someone that when the shift is on like that, he knows someone's in shallow right field, he goes and tries to make the play. I think he just runs to first base and he knows that they have more time to get to the ball because they have more range because of how deep they're playing. And so he just trusts that the fielder's there. And that didn't happen. He actually went and tried to get the ball, and that's where things went wrong. So that was another run that ended up scoring. And so people definitely got on him for that. He struck out looking, I think, with the bases loaded in the 7th inning. And then he also bobbled the ball, or not bobbled the ball. He made an error, which he shouldn't have done in the 9th inning on a ground ball to first. That just can't happen. That obviously, it was another insurance run, the 6th run of the game for Houston. Houston wins 6-3. So that wasn't a backbreaker because they already had a 2-run lead at the time, but still that play needs to be made. Emilio Pagan gave up that 2-run homer to Kyle Tucker in the 8th, which made it 5-3. That ended up being the difference. I think that it was a little, how should I say this? A little bit of a failure, I think, on the Padres coaching staff, just because in that scenario, right, you have Tim Hill as a weapon in your bullpen, a left-hander who is obviously with the sidearm. That would have been a better matchup than Emilio Pagan. And Pagan had already thrown like over 20 pitches in the inning. He just didn't have it. And it would have been a better matchup to have Tim Hill, a left-hander, go in and face a left-hander in Kyle Tucker than to have Pagan, a struggling reliever, a struggling right-handed reliever, face one of Houston's best hitters. So I guess obviously, hindsight, it's obviously easy to do this, but I think Tim Hill at least should have been up, and I don't think he was up in the bullpen. So I think that shouldn't have happened. I think that was an issue, and I think Tim Hill should have been up just to give an option, if they wanted to go that avenue. Because the next night on Saturday, Tim Hill comes in and faces Kyle Tucker to relieve Joe Musgrove. One pitch, that's all it took to get, I think it was a double play, a ground ball double play. And I think that would have been nice to have the night before, obviously, when it was a tie game. So those are my thoughts on that. Padres lose it 6-3. Hosmer obviously got a lot of hate for this game, and deservedly so. He didn't lose the game by himself. Obviously, Arrieta giving up the 3-run homer. Pagan giving up the homer, the offense only scoring 3 runs. But he was a big reason why he contributed to why the Astros scored 6 runs in the game. He had that base runner that shouldn't have reached, where he didn't get to the bag, that ends up scoring on a homer. And that would have been an out. Like I mentioned in the 9th inning, the error, that shouldn't have happened. That guy ends up scoring. The runner ends up scoring on that play. That can't happen. So that's 2 runs there, 2 base runners there that of Hosmer's fault. Didn't come through with the bases loaded. Neither did Cronenworth. So I'm not trying to just blame it all on Hosmer. I'm not one of those guys that is just going to blame Hosmer for everything that goes wrong, because that's totally unfair. Cronenworth did strike out before Hosmer did in that 7th inning with, I believe, a runner on third, or at least a runner in scoring position. So Padres again lose that one 6-3 on Friday night. 71-64 was their record. Reds and Phillies lost that night on Friday. So the Padres did have a chance to gain games on them, and they didn't. So that hurt. Padres, after Friday night's loss, they lost 15 of their last 20. But the good news is they would not lose the rest of the series on Saturday night, improved to 72-64. Cincinnati won, so they were still a half game back after Saturday night, though, leading into Sunday. Saturday night's game, Padres win 10-2. This was a good all-around game. You only give up 2 runs, pitching-wise. Joe Musgrove, the first inning was not great. What was it, like 4 straight hits? But he's a grinder, man. I don't know what else to say. He's a grinder. And he ended up going 5 1/3 strong innings, 100 pitches, those 2 runs only, that 1 home run to Kyle Tucker, 4 strikeouts, only walked 1 guy, just a grinder. And he's their most consistent pitcher this season. And a reason for that is because he doesn't let the innings blow up. He doesn't let the starts blow up. You don't really see him. I mean, with the exception of that one Arizona start where he gave up 5 runs in the first inning, that no-hitter game with Tyler Gilbert. Other than that, when he does give up, 2 runs in an inning, he doesn't let it snowball usually, It's not like a Blake Snell start against Oakland, earlier this year, we gave up 7 runs. He just let it keep snowballing. That doesn't happen with Musgrove. I point to, the Sunday night baseball game earlier this year at Dodger Stadium. He had to grind through it. He went, I think, less than 5 innings, but he kept the team in the game. and they ended up coming back down 6 runs, and they come back and win. So just a grinder, a great start again. Dinelson Lumet did come in the bullpen, his second relief appearance, 2/3 of an inning, didn't look great. 18 pitches, 2 walks, struck out 1, just didn't look great. But hey, this is his first real time that he's, in the bullpen consistently. He knows that's his role. I think he did earlier in the year, kind of piggybacking with Ryan Weathers, but he wasn't really sure that's his role, but he knows that he's in the bullpen now. So maybe it just takes, some time to get comfortable. And just like all relievers this year, you're going to have some rocky appearances and some great appearances. The great appearance was the first one in Arizona. The rocky one came this weekend against Houston. So hopefully, it goes back to the good, relief appearances for Lumet. In the 7th, that's kind of where the fun started. This team, like I mentioned at the top, they just haven't really been having fun, I think. I mean, Myers said it to the media after the game. It's hard to have fun when you go 0 for 4 and you're striking out twice a game. And he's right. He said people, the fans or whatnot, they say they just got to have fun, but he's right. It's hard to have fun when you're losing and you're striking out and you're not scoring runs. You're losing 15 out of your last 20 games, getting swept by the Rockies, losing 3 out of 4 to the Diamondbacks, getting swept by your division rival, the Dodgers, at home. Having 4 or less hits in every game of that series, batting .090 in the series, the worst like ever in franchise history. It's not fun. And so you got to win to have fun. You got to score runs to have fun. You got to hit homers like they did in the 7th with Machado and Myers hitting 2-run homers. Machado, that's how you have fun. Machado with 453 feet, 24th home run of the season to the second deck. Jesse Agler said it on the broadcast, he'd take the over for the 453 feet. I would too. He crushed that ball. Usually when you see balls go in the upper deck at Petco, or the second deck in left field at Petco, it's more towards left field, more towards that Callaway golf ball thing by the Western Metal building. That was not that. This was like as close to dead center as you could do it, hitting it into the second deck, right by the bullpen. Just absolute bomb. Myers was a bomb too into Western Metal. So that was that. Myers' homer made it 8-2. Tatis would homer, his 37th of the year. That was a great offensive performance late in the game, and it was fun to see them hit multiple homers and Tatis to do that skip around third, because this team needed it. You lose 15 out of your last 20. Coming down the stretch here, after this Angels series this week, they don't play another team that's under 500. So they got to get these wins, and they got to start clicking offensively if they want to make the playoffs. So perfect game to, get started. And so that was great. That was great to see for the Padres to, get some mojo back. And they carried it into Sunday. An entertaining game. Padres won on Sunday 4-3. Today's when we're recording it, actually, after this game. They improved to 73-64. They win it 4-3. Just before the game started, a good kind of present, for fans and for the team. The Reds lost to the Tigers 4-1. So that allowed the Padres to be tied with the Reds, obviously before the Padres had played the game. For their second wild card, by the end of it, they'd get the lead back. Half-game lead in the second wild card. Have a playoff spot right now that doesn't matter because the season's not over today. But you'd rather have the wild card lead than not. Hosmer gave the Padres a 3-1 lead in the first inning. The offense carried over from late last night. It was great to see. Hosmer kind of shut up fans for a little bit. It was a rocky first inning for him, up and down. Defensively, Cronenworth made a good play. It wasn't a great throw, but it wasn't a hard pick, and Hosmer just dropped the ball. That can't happen. They gave the error to Cronenworth, and I think probably an error should have been to both people. I know you can't do that, but Cronenworth didn't make a great throw. to Hosmer, but Hosmer, it was a catchable ball, with that said, and he didn't catch it. But then in the bottom half of the inning, he comes through, doubles off the wall, gives them a 3-1 lead, and they just let Chris Paddock ride. That was the best I've seen him in a long time. I talked about on the second to last episode, I think, that it might be, Chris Paddock. It might have been good for him to take a little bit of a break because, it's mental with him. When things aren't going well, I feel like it gets in his head and he just lets it, snowball. Kind of like Snell earlier in the season. But when he had a break, when he had COVID earlier in the year, he came back. It was like a new mentality, and he had like a string of 4 or 5, really good starts. It was really helping the team win, preventing runs and doing his job. And it seems like we're doing that now after coming off the IL with the oblique injury. A good start against Arizona, Chase Field. And then today, a great start, an absolutely great start until those last 2 batters in the 7th inning. He was only at 49 pitches through 5 innings. There was that one point where I was thinking in my head, I was like, dang, is there a chance for a complete game here? 49 pitches through 5 innings. It was effortless. He looked really good. I get it. You look at the box score, and it doesn't look great. 3 earned runs, gives up 2 home runs. He doesn't he doesn't strike out anyone. So the flashy numbers aren't there. But when you're watching, did the defense help him? Yeah. Machado, great play on a liner, made a play in right field on the shift. Cronenworth made a great diving stop. He did get helped out. However, it was fast. He was pitching to contact, meaning, when you strike out guys, it's at least 3 pitches, and those add up. You have 4 strikeouts, that's at least 12 pitches, probably more like 16 to 18 because of balls that you throw. But when you're pitching to contact, those 12 pitches for, 4 batters at minimum turns into 6, 7, or 8. And that kept his pitch count down. And that was a big reason why he was able to go so deep. He entered the 7th inning, and this is where he, it got bumpy. He entered the 7th inning with just 59 pitches, 1 run allowed on the fly ball to right field. And that 1 run, by the way, should have been like unearned. Seriously, Fernando, Sunday was like his first welcome to the outfield moment because he struggled. He lost the ball in the sun that almost hit him in the face. This Paddock run that I'm talking about in the first, it was just a lazy fly ball, and he was playing deep, and he had to run into shallow right field. He slid. The ball was literally in his glove. He caught the ball, but he just didn't hold on to it, and so a run scored. So I think he left his feet, so you can't give him an error for it, in my opinion, and they didn't give him an error. But that can't be an earned run. Paddock did his job. He got a fly ball. The ball was in his glove, and he dropped it. What else do you want Paddock to do? So that first run, you just blow it off. But the other 2 runs is where it was a little bumpy in the 7th inning. He gave up those 2 home runs, 4 pitches in that 7th inning before Tingler took him out, 2 pitches to Gurriel before he hit the 3rd one to the Western Metal Building, just a pitch left, middle in. And then the very next pitch, back-to-back homers on back-to-back pitches. The next pitch to Correa, fastball down the middle, and Correa made him pay for it. Homer to center, 2nd home run of the series, I believe. Man, I hate Correa. He's one of those guys, one of those punchable faces, like him, Max Muncy, Jose Altuve, any of those Astros that cheated. But he's one of those guys where it's like, gosh dang. He feels like one of those shortstop where he's not even a great shortstop, a great hitter, but he comes up big in big moments. And he homered. Paddock was done. His final line ends up being 6+ innings, 3 earned runs, 6 hits, no walks, no strikeouts, 2 homers to Gurriel and Curry in the 7th. Again, 63 pitches. He finished with 63 pitches pitching into the 7th inning. My mom was telling me how, oh, why didn't they pull him? They should have pulled him. They shouldn't. I wouldn't have even let him go into the 7th inning. And I totally disagreed with her. I said, it was easy. He was easy the entire way through. It wasn't really very stressful pitches. He had no walks. He was pitching to contact. Again, he hadn't even gotten to 65 pitches when they pulled him. You know, if any other guy was pitching, you leave him in. Paddock's pitching well, you leave him in. It's not like he's at 90 pitches and it's the same, no walks, 90 pitches. Maybe you think about it then, but he started the inning, wasn't even at 60 pitches yet. I mean, he was pitching to contact. He was getting outs, quick, efficient outs. I'm sorry, I would have left him in just like Tingler did. He earned the right today to keep pitching because there was no one that was really hitting him. The one run he gave up in the first inning was not a run on him, So I think it was a great start, obviously, other than those last two pitches of his outing that tied the game at 3. But great start from Paddock, one of the best starts of the year for him. I understand that the results, he doesn't get the win, which sucks, but a good start from Paddock. We'll take that the rest of the year. So, yeah, I definitely would have kept him in. No walks. I'm a big guy with walks. Don't walk anyone. That's no free passes. That's no free extra base runners that could come around to score. So just a good overall outing from Chris. And you love to see him have success. Just wish he can keep building on it. Just keep building on that success. In the top of the 9th, Melanson came in. Whenever he comes in a non-save situation, I'm a little iffy. I'm like, he's going to definitely allow at least one base runner. It's not going to be a clean inning, and it wasn't. He walked 2 guys, struck out Aledmus Diaz, though, looking with the runner on third to end the inning and give the Padres a chance to walk it off in the 9th. So good, job out of him. And Crone did it. He definitely was due. He just, I don't know. He was striking out. This is what it was. He was striking out more than he was earlier in the year. And when you strike out, you're not even putting the ball in play. You're not even giving yourself a chance to get on base. And he was striking out. He was just striking out too much for, the level of contact hitter that we know that Cronenworth is. He was just striking out too much. But he made Ryan Stanek pay. Walk-off home run. It's clapping here in my room. It was great, a great moment. Hit it right in the Crone zone. And it was great to see Petco jumping finally again. We saw it on Saturday night, last night, winning 10-2, but a walk-off's different. He gets, I don't even know what they put on him after the walk-off, but it was some powder or something on all over his face, and he said it got in his mouth. But it was a great win. They had to win the series. I think they have to win every series that they play. Is that going to mean, are they going to? No, because they're playing playoff teams the rest of the way after this Angel series on Tuesday and Wednesday. But I think they have to win every playoff series or every series they play, because it's like they have to treat it like playoff games, because they know Cincinnati's playing Pittsburgh and Detroit and the Cubs, and St. Louis is in the race, and Philadelphia has a pretty easy schedule and they're on their tails. The Mets have won like 7 of their last 8 games if you count the suspended game from like April. They're playing well. They've kind of snuck in. If the Braves lose their division spot, they're going to be in in the wild card race. So the Padres, they just have to keep winning, because it's not like July or whatnot where they had like a 7-game wild card lead and they were like, yeah, there's no race here. We're fighting the Dodgers for the first wild card. We're still in the division when we're 6 games back or whatnot at the deadline or All-Star break, whatever it was. That's not the case anymore. They have to keep winning these games, because if they don't, you don't win series, it's hard for me to say that the Reds are going to like lose more than one series the rest of the way, one or two series the rest of the way. And the Padres, with the level of competition that they're playing, there's obviously better odds of them losing, one or two series than the Reds losing one or two series. So you have to win these games. That's my point. So it was definitely good to get a series win, and it feels good. It feels good to smile again about the Padres, losing 5 out of 15 or being 5-15 in their last 20, getting swept by the Dodgers and scoring. I think they got shut out by the Dodgers in the series finale, getting swept by Colorado. Just the offense not doing anything and starting pitching not doing anything. And starting pitching showed up. Musgrove pitched well. Arrieta gave up 3 runs. You'll take that. Paddock, he had a great start, very efficient. You love to see it. And so they're 73-64 right now. So they're 9 games over 500. Going into this Angels series, they have an off day tomorrow on Monday. And then they host Shohei Ohtani and the Angels Tuesday and Wednesday. Blake Snell and Yu Darvish will pitch those games. Jace Tingler just told the media. And so what we're expecting out of that is pretty much what we're expecting out of Musgrove and Paddock the rest of the way. Just keep the team in the ball game, go deep so that the bullpen's not taxed. And really with Darvish right now, I mean, I hate to say this because he's our ace pretty much the entire year over, since that IL stint started with the back and stuff like that. But I hate to say it, but you have to kind of have the same mentality with him like you had with Jake Arrieta. Just keep him in the ball game. Just give us some type of length, because frankly, Darvish just hasn't been pitching great. He got absolutely rocked. He had 6 runs against Arizona his last time out. Pitches left over the plate. I think that they're not going to tell you this. Like I mentioned, the Padres aren't going to tell you this, but I think that Darvish, there has to be some type of, he has to be feeling the injury somehow, because it just doesn't feel like he's giving max effort and totally just letting it go, letting it eat. I don't see that. So just keeping the Padres in the game is what I need to expect out of Darvish. And Snell, I need to expect a Musgrove outing. I need to expect a Dodger outing. You're facing the Angels. They're not a playoff contender. They don't have Mike Trout, obviously. Their lineup is thin, past Upton and Fletcher and Ohtani, Jared Walsh. After that, I mean, it's pretty thin. You got to go 6-7 innings. I think that's what you got to expect out of him. Because I get it. Our expectations, earlier in the year, give us 5 innings, right? I mean, because he was struggling, give him 7 runs to the A's, or he'd have a good start and then he'd get shelled against Milwaukee, give up a couple homers. Now, though, he's pitching like the Blake Snell we saw in Game 6 of the World Series. And if he's done that for a string of consecutive starts now we have to change our expectations of him. So 6-7 strong innings, 2-3 or less runs, that's what we need out of him. Give the bullpen a rest. Hopefully he goes in the game with the mentality of, I'm going to give the bullpen a day off today. Because if he can do that and he pitches like that, Padres are going to be in a great spot, because the offense should be able to score 4 runs to win, 3 runs and win. And the way they're going, combining for 14 runs the last 2 games of this Astros series, let's keep it going. Why can't the offense, put up some runs for him? So that's Darvish, Snell for the Tuesday-Wednesday series against the Angels. Again, 73-64 the Padres are, half game lead in the National League wildcard race over the Cincinnati Reds. Again, I don't want to, make this a Padres versus Reds thing. It's not. It's Padres versus Reds versus Cardinals versus Phillies versus Mets, maybe. As of right now, Padres, again, half game over the Reds, 2.5 up on the Phillies, and 3 up on St. Louis, 4 up on the Mets. Mets have a 3.5 game disadvantage in the NL East. So their most likely avenue is the division because, believe it or not, they have a smaller gap in the division than the wild card. But Cincinnati, again, half game back. Philly, 2.5. St. Louis, 3. So 3 teams are within 3 games of us for the second wild card. And Cincinnati has the easiest schedule remaining. St. Louis has a pretty difficult schedule like us, but we obviously have the hardest schedule, which puts us, at the probably lowest chance of making the playoffs out of the 4. Or maybe out of the 3 if you don't include St. Louis because of their tough schedule and the fact that they are in a pretty, in a 3-game hole. But Philadelphia, 2.5 back. They have a pretty easy schedule. Let's look at Philadelphia's schedule here. Again, the Padres, they're playing playoff teams, and that's why it makes it really hard to believe that they're going to win the wild card easily. They're not. I think it's going to come down to the last weekend of the season when they're playing the Giants up in San Francisco. But just looking at Philadelphia's schedule, the rest of the way, Milwaukee, they have 3 against Milwaukee. That's tough. But then after that, they play no one. They play 4 against the Rockies, under 500 team. They play 3 against the Cubs, under 500 team. They play 3 against the Mets, but then they play 3 against Baltimore, terrible team. They're like over 40 games under 500. Then they have 3 games against Pittsburgh, and then they play Atlanta, which is 3 big games. They might have the division there. You can maybe decide the division there. And then they end with 3 games against Miami. Terrible team. So other than Milwaukee for 3, the Mets for 3, and Atlanta, so 9 games there. That's 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. That's 17 games against non-contending teams that they have. The Padres have 2. And so that's against the Angels, Tuesday, Wednesday. And then after that, every other team's a contender. So that just shows how lopsided. And then obviously the Reds schedule playing Pittsburgh and Detroit and Chicago. That just shows how lopsided the schedules are in favor of teams like the Phillies and the Reds. So the Padres, if the good news is, though, that the Padres do make the playoffs, again, half game up right now, they do make the postseason, they would have earned it. And if they do make the postseason, that means they beat pretty much almost every playoff team that they play here in September. And that means that I'm going to be extremely confident in them in, a 1-game playoff because they just beat all these playoff teams. So that is a positive. But again, Padres win this series 2 out of 3 against the Astros. They have 2 at home against the Angels. And then after that, they're on the road with their stretch of the rest of their games against playoff teams. They got 3 at LA against the Dodgers, then 4 at San Francisco, then 3 at St. Louis. That'll be a huge series because they're both right with the wild card. They could put St. Louis away, I think, in that series. Then they have 3 against San Francisco, 4 if you count the suspended game against the Braves, who lead the NL East, 3 against the Dodgers, 3 against the Giants. Talk about a gauntlet. So that kind of leads me into a mailbag question we received from Andrew Wexler. What's up, Wex? On a scale of 1 to 10, how confident are you in the Padres that they will be able to make the postseason? And I will say probably like a 4, so like 40%. John Schaefer of Extra 1360, he came on the podcast this past week, and I asked him that same question. He said, I can't, and I agree with him. He said, I can't, put it under 50-50 because of the schedule that they have, the way that they've been playing. Now, granted, this was before the Astros series, before they, broke out offensively. But the schedule that they have compared to the schedule that the Reds and Phillies have, it's really, really hard to give them even a 50-50 chance of making the postseason, because it's not like they're starting this big postseason stretch the rest of September with, a 3-game lead in the wild card. It's not. It changes like on a day. It can change on a daily basis. It's only a half game. So let's see if Cincinnati plays. Cincinnati tomorrow. They do play the Cubs, again, a non-contender. So theoretically, they have Sonny Gray on the mound tomorrow. They could win that game, and we'll be tied. We won't have the second wild card for ourselves. So that's just an example right there where it can change on a daily basis. And so you can't just say, I know I'm the biggest Padre fan. If you know me, I'm the biggest Padre fan you'll ever meet. But I also want to be realistic. And because I'm such a huge Padre fan, I'm not going to be biased and say, oh, we got this 80-20 chance. No. I understand the scenarios. I can see the schedules. The schedules is big. Usually I don't like looking into the schedules too much, but when it's this lopsided, literally the Padres postseason starts on Thursday against the Giants, because they play postseason games the rest of the way against postseason teams. When it's that lopsided, it's just hard, and it's just really, really hard to think that the Padres will, will make the playoffs just because of things that have happened this year that just haven't gone right. And, getting swept by the Dodgers the last time they played them, and they were at home, that definitely doesn't leave a good taste in my mouth. And I can't say that again. So I'm going to put it at like 40%, because if I was, a Yankee fan or something like that, and I had no bias towards the Padres, I'd probably put it even lower, to be quite honest. If I was just looking from the outside, because I see that, it was a couple of days ago that they were 5-15 in their last 20 games. It was a couple of days ago that a few days ago that Darvish gave up like 6 runs against the Arizona Diamondbacks, who were fighting for MLB draft positioning instead of a postseason spot, right? It was a couple weeks ago that the Padres couldn't muster together 5 hits in any of the games against the Dodgers. It was a couple weeks ago that the Padres got swept by the Colorado Rockies, and they won 1 game on a road trip that included the Rockies and the Diamondbacks. So so my bias in me is saying 40%, because I know the talent on this team and they can go on runs, and they've actually played pretty well against great teams this year. But I also, being a Padres fan, haven't made the playoffs in a full season since 2006, when I was 3 years old. You got to be realistic, and it's like you're bracing for the worst. And I hope that doesn't happen. But so that's where I'd put it, is like 40%, just because of the schedules, and I guess just my my attitude, the way I think, the way I can just see the schedules. And I guess I just think I just think the worst is going to happen, and hopefully that doesn't happen. But before we get going here, I did want to talk about a story that Ken Rosenthal wrote earlier today, a column on The Athletic. I know Ken Rosenthal is absolutely hated in San Diego now, because he said the Padres are close to getting Max Scherzer, and then they weren't, and then he ends up actually going to the Dodgers of all teams with Trey Turner hours later. But he did write. He's still a reliable reporter. 99.5% of the time, he's right, and that 0.5 wasn't, obviously, and it was for us, and that stinks. Obviously, I had a full reaction to that right after that happened. But he did have an article on Sunday, and he said Ty France was shocked about being traded last season. He was playing he was doing the fantasy football draft in August, because remember, the deadline was in August because it was just a 2-month season, and it started like when the usual deadline is. So end of August, they were doing the football draft in the Padres clubhouse, and Jace Tingler brought Ty France into his office. They wanted to speak with Preller. Preller didn't answer the phone for 3 to 5 minutes, so I wonder how awkward that was. Preller Tingler just sitting there. Hey, how's it going, guys? Preller wants to talk to you, but he's pretty busy right now. Executing all these trades. That must have been awkward. Anyway, but Preller ends up calling him a couple minutes later, informs them that they were traded, and Ty France told Rosenthal that he was shocked about being traded last season. Obviously, he was blocked by Hosmer at first, Machado at third, so he wasn't going to start. Would he have started this year? Yes, he would have. They could have used him this year, I'll tell you that. But if probably Ha-Seong Kim probably isn't on the team, or maybe Profar is not here. Would I rather have Ty France than Profar? Probably, because he's a better hitter. But Profar does have some, energetic vibes to him. Provides energy, smiling all the time. So maybe that's good for the clubhouse. Anyway, back to Ty France. He was blocked, starting wise. He knew that, but he was still surprised because, according to Rosenthal, AJ Preller talked to Ty France a couple weeks before the deadline, and he told him, quote, he was, quote, going to be a big part of what San Diego was building for the next 4 to 6 years. That's what AJ Preller told Ty France, that he was going to be a big part of what the Padres were building for the next 4 to 6 years. And so for a couple weeks later, to Preller from going to that stance to saying, no, now we're going to trade you, that was definitely a little weird to me, because to switch stances in a couple weeks, I get the Padres got back Austin Nola and they needed catching desperately, and with all the control, that was really hard to pass up, I'm sure. And that's why they didn't pass up on it. But to tell a guy that he's going to be there and be a big part of the team for the next 4 to 6 years, and then a couple weeks later to trade him, that doesn't really add up. That doesn't really make sense to me. So yeah, that was a little weird. But so I thought that was a little interesting to share. Also a little, reading between the lines when France says Preller told him the next 4 to 6 years, is that the Padres' window of contention? And so, you say the next 4 to 6 years, okay, split that in half, 5-year window. Maybe that's what Preller's thinking if he's telling players that. Okay, so 2020, that you don't want to, you're not going to count that, right? You're not going to count that as part of the window because it was a 60-game season. So they were really, what everyone was really thinking, the window wise of contention for the Padres starting in 2021. And so this year, okay, that's 1 year. 2022 is 2, 2023, 2024. So 2024, 2025, something around there. Is that the end of the window of contention? If it is, then maybe we should expect some moves pretty dang, if things don't work out this year, changes might be made because that's a 4 to 6 year window. That's not a short window. But when you sign Fernando, let's not do Fernando because that's a long contract. So he's going to go through a rebuild at some point probably because we're not the Yankees still. But like a Manny contract. The next 10 years he's been here for what? 19, 20. It's his third year. So he has an opt-out. I obviously wouldn't expect him to opt out because that's in the middle of the Padres window of contention. But we have, so you didn't contend in 19, you contended in 20. So 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. So theoretically, that matches the window up with the window of contention, the 4 to 6 years that Preller told Ty France with Machado's, meat of the contract. So I guess that does work out well. If you're the Padres, that's how you sign Machado. And if that's the window, then that's good. But I think that's definitely good to know as a Padre fan. It's bigger than 2 to 3 years, which it seems like at points that Preller has aimed for, with Darvish under control for 2 more years and Snell for 2 more years, and Clevenger for I think next year. You're kind of the Padre fan in me. It's like, okay, why is the window so short? So the reaffirming that it's a longer window, 4 to 6 years, that's I like hearing that. But I did think it was kind of weird that Ty France was told he was going to be here, and then they trade him a matter of weeks later. Along with Andres Munoz, by the way, I get he was hurt, and Taylor Trammell, you just trade him. I know you got Robert Hassel, but you just trade him. I thought that was a little weird. But I just thought to tell you guys that a little bit and give my opinion on that whole window thing that, France alluded to. I think that was really interesting, and I think it's good news to Padre fans that the window they're intending, 4 to 6 years, that's a good window, and that's going to give them plenty of chances to win. So that's the episode. Again, we talked about Mckenzie Gore, recapped the Astros series, talked about Ty France right here, what all happened with that trade, talked about the Padres' chances of making the playoffs, like I feel like I'm going to do the rest of the year, obviously, because it's the most important time of the season. Padres have 2 games, Tuesday, Wednesday, off day on Monday. Before that series, don't know if Ohtani's pitching yet, but at Petco Park, 2 games before they start their postseason stretch against all playoff teams. This has been episode 54 of the Talking Friars podcast. Ben Fadden here saying so long, and until next time, let's go Padres.